today's edition of Pegasus Test. On today's edition, we're covering the EOTech XPS3. Before we dive into the XPS3, I should probably go over some biases I have about EOTech. Now, I love the reticle. When I first got exposed to it, when I first got my first EOTech, way long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was really impressed with that reticle. I really like how it performed. And I was willing to overlook some of the other problems that the EOTech had because I wanted that reticle so bad. What were some of the problems? Well, the first one I got, I think it was called the 520, worked on N batteries. Well, N batteries are small, compact, and very expensive, and don't last long at all. And basically, you'd go to the range, you spent the whole day there using your EOTech. By the end of the day, that battery was done for. It was gone. Then came the 512 model that I got, and it worked off AA batteries, and it seemed to last a whole lot longer than the N batteries, and of course AA's are plentiful, they're everywhere, and they're cheap. So the fact that you went through batteries fairly quickly, say compared to an aim point, which basically you turn the thing on and die and go to Valhalla, and the thing still frickin' works, because they never run out of battery life. You know, the cost of batteries was low, and they were common, and they were easy to change. It was kind of worth the hassle over that. The other thing I did not like about the EOTechs that I had was the fact that for the contacts inside the battery compartment to remain in place, you had to store it with the batteries in the sight. And what can happen under that? Batteries can explode, and in my case they did. And when I'd go to repair it, okay, now I'm paying about $50 for a repair kit to put new contacts in, get a new battery compartment and everything, and clean the site up. Kind of a lot of maintenance to go into this site that a lot of other sites out there are not having. And my final bias against it comes from March of 2017. What's significant about that? Myself and 8 other guys, or excuse me, 7 other guys for a total of 8 of us, go out to the range to do some practice. We call it our shake off the rust shoot, you know, practice all the skills we already know that we haven't been doing over the winter time like we should. And 8 of us went out with 10 rifles. All had some version of the EOTech on them. And by the end of the day of training, which we had to end early, was the fact that out of 10 sites, only 2 were still functional. Now, since that time, the 2 of the sites that were functional at the end of the day are still working for the people who own them, because they were the more modern ones of the type of EOTechs that were used at the time. And some of the other sites are back up and running because people have paid to get the rebuild kits or sent them back in to be factory refurbished. But this is not an inexpensive site, and to have all that trouble, I was at that point, I'm done. No more EOTech. Much as I love the reticle, I can get it in a hollow sun for half the price and none of the problems. So I had kind of, my personal bias was to push EOTech off to the side and say, no, this ain't for me. This is not something I want to trust. But to get to the point where I'm testing an EOTech here, with all these biases, I started to notice that a lot of spec op units are running EOTechs, and they wouldn't be doing that if they didn't work. Then I've gone to Finland and shoot several Finnish brutality matches, and the guys that are doing good over there, they're running EOTechs. And then finally, a friend of mine who actually lent me this site was using it at One Shepherd, and it was working great. And he was getting great results both in daylight and at night with his night vision. And when he came along and helped us out with the British Advanced Snap shooting, which I'll put an end card to, he got great performance out of the EOTech. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. So he lent me the site, and I started to put it through its paces. And I took this site to a night vision match, the 2-gun Igloo After Dark. Put an end card on that here at the end of the video as well. And it performed well, both using it as a passive sight and passive aiming with the PVS-14 mounted to my helmet, and then later on I moved the sight down to the rifle for weapons mounted because I thought that would give me better results, and it worked great there too. The XPS3 in particular does have night vision settings. If night vision is a thing that's not an issue for you, you can save some money, get the XPS2. It's essentially the same sight, just does not have the night vision settings. So I've used it successfully in a match with great results. I've used it in training and gotten good results. It seems that a lot of the problems that I had with EOTech have been corrected. Let's go into what the controls are on this and how this site works, and then we'll talk about it more on the other side. So let's take a look at the right-hand side of the XPS3. This is the side of the site where most things are happening. So we start off right here. Our first control is elevation, and you turn clockwise and that'll bring your impact down. You turn counterclockwise and it will bring your impact up. The next control over is the windage control. You turn it clockwise, it's going to move your impact to the right. You move it counterclockwise, it's going to move it to the left. The third thing we have here is not so much a control, but it is the access to the battery compartment. This XPS3 uses a CR123 battery, which is a change from the older models of EOTech that used either AA or N batteries. And the reason it's transverse mounted on this weapon instead of longitudinally mounted as it previously used to be was on .308 and heavy caliber rifles. It was found that recoil would cause the battery to move in the battery compartment, losing contact with the leads and causing the sight to turn off right when you needed it most. So by 90-degree turn of the battery compartment, it did two things. One, it prevented that recoil problem of causing the sight to shut off, and two, it actually made the sight more compact. And this sight already takes a lot of real estate on your rail, so that's an important thing. Okay, here on the back of the XPS3, we have another series of buttons. Let's go over what they do. Your two lower rectangular buttons, those control your brightness. One here on the left controls brightness down. The one here on the right controls brightness up. And the center button right here, that is a night vision setting. And we'll show you what those settings look like here in just a bit. If I want to turn the sight on, I just quickly press the right-hand button. Sight's on. Now I want to control the brightness of it. I want to say that's too bright. Let's go down a few clicks. Gets it to the point of being reasonable. That's a simple thing to do. Now I want to turn the sight off. All I do is press both buttons at the exact same time. Sight goes off. The XPS3 has a multitude of brightness settings, from so dim you can barely see it all the way up to too bright where it blows out the screen. The XPS3 is night vision capable. Let's go ahead and see how this looks through a PVS-14 white phosphor night vision device. Okay, now we know how to turn on and adjust the brightness, use it with night vision, how to adjust the windage and elevation so we can zero it. Have my biases changed? Yes and no. Bias is a hard thing to put aside no matter what it is, be it a piece of gear, your political candidate, or your opinion on Nostradamus. Doesn't matter. Once you have a bias, it's hard to ignore it. And for me not to admit that would not be giving a proper review. But the point of it is, it performed well in a match. If you watch my performance in the Igloo After Dark, you will see that the issues that I'm having are not so much equipment related as they are shooter related. You know, I haven't practiced enough with this combination at night to get the best results out of it, but I got good results. So that tells me right there, with practice, my results will improve. Some of the other issues that EOTechs used to have, such as with the longitudinal mounting under recoil of heavy calibers, .308 and such, they would lose contact with the contacts inside the battery compartment and the sight would shut down. This transverse mounting seems to solve the problem. By switching to a CR123 battery, it solved a lot of the other battery problems. As we all know, the CR123 is a lithium battery. It provides good long service. It usually has compatible with most of your night division devices, so that's a great thing because you already have to carry too many batteries as it is, and if you've got to carry a lot of batteries, you might as well carry batteries where everything uses the same one. Just the logic of that can't be denied for logistics. Also, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of good competition shooters, a lot of spec op units are using these EOTech sights, and quite frankly, if they weren't getting the results and standing up, they wouldn't be using them. So I have to concede those points. The other thing that's good about the EOTech, and it always has been good about EOTech, this armored housing right here that goes around the sight. This will protect it from a lot of dings and other things that occur. Another cool thing about the holographic sight system is when you're in very awkward shooting positions, if you keep both eyes open, you can encounter the situation where you're looking at the reticle and or you're looking in the window and there's no reticle because the reticle appears to be appearing outside thing. It's an optical illusion, but the coolest thing about that optical illusion, wherever that dot is, that's where your bullet's going. So it makes it a very versatile sighting system. Am I going to switch up and start buying EOTech again? Honestly, I don't know. But in the same vein, that's my personal biases, but I can say this. I'm not going to say anybody who goes and gets the EOTech XPS3, I'm not going to tell you you're making a bad choice. Under my testing, it has worked. It works with night vision. It is accurate. It does not have recoil problems, although I'm shooting .223 on a heavy rifle. How much recoil can there be? But it seems to perform. The people I know that I trust that use it are very much dyed-in-the-wool fans of it, to the fact that they're not using other sights they used to. So the sight performs. It is expensive, and that is a detriment to it. You could essentially buy two Holosuns that do the same thing, have the same reticle and the same settings for night vision, and you could get two for the price of one, and you can't argue that. That's good because you can equip more of your rifles. Or if you lose it and or break it, your loss is minimized. It's half of what you do if you lose or break this. Although, to be fair to both the Holosuns and EOTech, breaking one, you put some effort and be proud of yourself if you do that. Another detriment to the EOTech system, no matter which EOTech sight is the size. This takes up a lot of real estate on your rails. It also adds a lot of weight compared to another sight, say like a Holosun or an Aimpoint that does pretty much the same thing. The nice thing about it, the unit is self-contained and it puts the reticle at just about the right height for co-witness, and you don't need risers or any special mount adapters or anything like that, which you do with a lot of other sights, say like the MRO or the Aimpoint T1. The value, it's right up there with all your name brands. It's expensive, it's not cheap. If price is really a concern, but you want these features, go to Holosun. It's going to give you the same thing, half the price. If you want long battery life, you got it now that you got a CR123 battery. But if you want long battery and compactness, you probably need to be looking at the Aimpoint Micro Series. All that being said, the sight performs. It'll do what it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it. We hope you found this overview of the XPS3 helpful and informative. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and tune in for future reviews on rifle optics.